So I've been not just working on, interested in studying enlightenment and ultimate reality and the highest state of consciousness and all that stuff for a long time, as far back as I can remember, but I've actually been achieving it for a long time. More so, increasingly, lately. So, let me give you a little bit of context here. I'm a philosopher, and what I tell my students now is that, while I give them philosophy, all these things, all these standard, legit philosophy things on the syllabus, Plato, Descartes, the Vedas, and all of that, that's just a cover for the one thing. Okay, I only want to teach one thing. I have one highest teaching, deepest teaching, and it's the only thing worth teaching. What's really weird about it is it's a completely bizarre idea. My students, I try to get them used to it. I think it is something that can be understood right away. A lot of people have a lot of resistances to the possibility of entertaining such an idea. So here it is. There's one point. It is right here. It is the center of the here and the now, and it's very specifically located. Your point of perspection, perspectivity, your perspectival point. I am not just talking about vision, okay? But this is how we picture it. I want to resist the oculocentric bias that could be involved here, but there's something very fundamental about the eyeball and the nature of seeing that expresses a lot, that packs a lot of meaning in just the icon of the great eyeball, the diagram of the all. So that's, in a nutshell, in the core, kernel, that's it. There's this one idea. Okay, but what this is the center of the infinite sphere. And, it's here. Like I can point, with my fingers, I can point like this so that there's nothing there, or I can make a mark. These are like two different ways of doing it, right? Through context and there's nothing there, or through making the mark and it's the presence. But this is much more technical. Maybe we'll get there later. But what's really exciting is if we're able to get comfortable with this situation, and I've toyed a lot with this idea, with this possibility, with kind of rehearsing it in my head. Would I just be talking like this to put it on YouTube in the style of my obsession, the person I watch a lot of lately? In fact, I rewatch certain episodes. Certain episodes I don't watch, but certain ones I watch a lot. This is Leo Gura. He is a self-help, personal development type of figure, but he's coming from philosophy. And lately, past 8 years, he started working with some really profound psychedelics incorporated into his meditation enlightenment process. Now, I've been interested in and practicing a lot of this stuff in my own ways, sort of just by joy, spontaneously, naturally, my whole life, in very interesting environments since I was a kid, but also, increasingly carefully curated, and not just by myself, but by my higher self. Okay, and that's kind of like, there's like a deep end here. Let me take us to the deep end, and then we'll go in and we'll stay under until we realize that there is no need to surface, because there never was a surface. But in another respect, there's infinitely many. So here it is. The absolute infinite is ultimate reality. And it's me. I'm God. I am the most intimate thing. I am the touch point of this point that I'm referring to, okay? When I do this, when I self-refer, when I reflexively, consider myself, when I look at the screen, when I see people and I assume that I look like this or whatever, I am God. I'm literally God. Okay? And the person that I am, Randy, this human here, this is the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. Okay? Sri Krishna, Now, does that mean I am Sri Krishna? That I am Leo Gura? Here's the thing. Absolutely. I mean, I'm all of these things. The question is, what is this reality? And how do we situate it in the big picture, right? Because there are infinitely many possibilities in the imagination. That's just what it is. That's what the nature of the imagination is. And we have sort of residues of this personal investment, interest, consciousness, right? This consciousness that we have of our experience, our life, our cars, our families, neighborhood. But you think this is Earth? This is Krishna Loka or whatever, I don't know. This is the highest planet. I mean, of all possible planets in all possible universes. Now you might be thinking well, what about those planets made of gold, where it's just like this, except, it's like Atlantis and everything's really great. It's a golden age or something like that, Well, now I'm here in this world, and certain aspects of it that me and my cohort, Earthlings, right, in this space and time, supposedly, right, we know this is fucked up, right? Ice and the list, all these awful things. But I am not interested in these things at the same level. These things are serious things that I think about, enough all the time. But I really try to focus on the point, okay? I try to bring it back to the point, because this is coming, okay? I happen to know, as a scientist, as not like an experimental scientist, it's not like I have beakers at my house, I am a phenomenologist. I'm an ontological phenomenologist following the tradition of Hedwig Conrad Martius. And, I practice eidetic reduction. And yes, for me, it is a spiritual practice, not like what it was for Husserl, but yes, like it is for Conrad Martius. Not that, she's still alive. Her dates are 1888 to 1966. But she's a very powerful mystic philosopher, scientist, and her influence on me right now is great. I have a number of influences, but all of these are just devices that I'm using, like these hands, that I'm picking up here from the ether, these hands and these words and everything about everything. These are all things that I am coming from the absolute infinite sphere, from the absolute infinite center, and making and creating. So the question is, my consciousness, how do I take the big consciousness of like going into Godhead meditations or whatever, and bring them gently, possibly even quite happily, here into ordinary waking state human consciousness, specifically mine, right? But also in a way that this can be transmitted to other humans. In other words, is it possible that we could have something like peace on earth? You know, people who have a profound psychedelic experience go in, and when they have the breakthrough and they've worked through a lot of like trauma and purification, cleansing, you know, we've worked through all that. Now what, right? This point, this is where it all coalesces, and we realize there's only one being. And what that is, finally, it's the supreme being. It's the beyond of being, the beyondness, what Plato calls the epeikeneiatezousias, the beyond of being. And what this is God. There's no other word for it. It's God. Infinite consciousness, okay? That's what it is. In my classes, I like to make like a list of synonyms. Infinite consciousness, and AKA simply consciousness. That is God. Nothingness, pure and radical nothingness. How could there be such a thing? Wouldn't it totally annihilate absolutely everything so we couldn't even talk about it or raise it to themification? Well, what is pure and radical nothingness? All of these things are doorways to God realization, to God consciousness. Pure and radical nothingness is exactly this. And by exactly this, I mean not just this, but super this, like exactly beyond. Here's the thing. Pure and radical nothingness, picture like the infinite sphere, empty. It's the same thing as the infinite sphere, full. In its fullness of absolutely all possibilities. This is so far beyond anything we could imagine, anything that we can find possible, that we can realize in our imagination, or that we can realize out here in the real external world. There is a real external world, okay? There is a very strong, important element of realism that needs to be included with all of this very, very powerful truth of idealism all the way down, all the way out. All there is what's generally understood today as idealism. But you could see that with Conrad Martius, with this influence, this is realism. And here's the important thing. So we want to situate this world, this stuff, in a super context. Let me start over. Maybe instead of wanting to situate things in any kind of particular framework, what we want is presuppositionlessness. What we want is to be able to perform a total reduction in the sense of there is nothing, okay? And within that context, things come to be. Now, we might know that that might be the truth, okay? If we've like thought about it, if we've contemplatively meditated upon this sort of thing in our philosophy and our thinking, but we don't want to just assume things. We don't want that for the purposes of science, to be scientific, to be rational, right? To empirically investigate things through our consciousness and discover what we can possibly know. Now, here's what there is. The absolute infinite is ultimate reality. And this is the overwhelming overflowingness of bliss beyond bliss, ecstasy beyond ecstasy. It can't even grasp itself. It's nothing. But it's everything, you see. It's so nothing. It's absolutely everything. So that includes this. So pratitya samutpada, mutually co-arising interdependence of forms, all of these things, the Buddhist parable of the reed, you know, all of this is true for the things that appear. And in the biggest sense, that what this is absolute relativity. So here's And I have like diagrams on my website for this kind of stuff, and maybe I'll edit and throw in a couple like terms and diagrams here and there. But remember, the whole thing is it's all encapsulated in this point. And what it is this point is the center of the infinite sphere. This we can know with apodictic absolute certainty. So in relation to such a possibility, all of infinity, which is boundless, becomes like a sphere. An infinite sphere, n-dimensional, so not a three-dimensional sphere, but specifically infinite dimensional. Infinite space-time is not something we're used to thinking about, but that's what I'm talking about. It's what would be pure and radical nothingness, because it is. It is nothingness. Nothing is infinity. And so not relative nothing, not countably infinite, or what's called the infinitum secundum quid, but rather the absolute infinite. And this was something that, for instance, the guy who founded contemporary set theory gave us the categories of transfinite entities. Georg Cantor couldn't integrate in his ordinary consciousness this nature of the absolute infinite. He knew what it was. It's God. The absolute infinite is God. Cantor understood this. Now, I'm no expert on Cantor. I have friends who are, and it's interesting to go into the biography. Claire Ortiz-Hill is, I know, working on some interesting work with that right now. She's presented some at like one of my conferences, for instance, and is working with people from another conference that I'm involved in. So this is a very important concept. Okay, so like at least it's been 17 minutes now since I started talking in this clip, and these are like concepts that we could flag and think about later. I'm just gonna kind of throw it all out here right now because and it's gonna be all over the place. Because honestly, I'm a householder, a grahasthana I'm reading all this Srimad Bhagavatam, all this ISKCON material, because I find that this idea of Krishna is the best way of one of the things I chose to study right now to help me integrate knowing that I'm God and I'm also this person. And although there could be like better versions of me, I encounter them. I am in touch with them. I am in direct, communication or direct contact with these higher selves and their realms, and they're real, and there's infinitely many of them. But I concretely, physically encounter my higher selves now, because when you accept that you are God and you go into this, at first you have all these experiences of bliss by just entering the Godhead, but eventually, you just start being fucking happy. Like, I call it happiness meditation. There's something similar. I've been inspired hugely by Leo Gura. He's got something called satisfaction meditation, and that's cool. It's kind of the same idea. Like today there were some beautiful clouds. I was in the pool with my kids and some friends, and there were these clouds, and I was just looking at them, and just like they wanted me to enjoy them, so I did. I was like, okay. And I was looking at these clouds unfolding, these beautiful thunderheads, or whatever you call them, right? These I don't know if they were nimbic, they were cumulus clouds. They were so flippin' beautiful, and I was just watching like the heavens unfold, perhaps what these ISKCON people call the spiritual sky, I think the idea of like a lot of orthodox perspectives on different religions, try to separate you from this stuff. And I get that, because I am in this human incarnation in order to interact with other humans, and we're all going to pretend like we're just humans, right? But nothing is disconnected from it's God. God from the absolute infinite. Everything has its infinite form, and that doesn't go anywhere. In fact, where is it? It's right here, right now. And so meditating on this point, the power, the tremendous power in this, what I'm giving you, this idea that there's only one infinitesimal point, one true infinitesimal, not infinitely many of them. Like, okay, yes, that too, but that's all secondary to the being of it, which is the spirit, the instrument of God. Okay, so the absolute infinite is ultimate reality. This point is the spirit. This is penultimate reality. And it becomes, embodied. So this body like points to it, and with my words and my ideas, I can indicate it. But to whom am I indicating it? What else is there when you're talking about don't forget, we're talking about the foundations of metaphysics. Okay, if we were just talking about like layers of sediment, then we can point to different bodies and say, I'm Randy and that's Bill or whatever, But that's not what we're talking about. That's going to be there. There's always going to be the sedimentation of these meanings, but meaning comes from the surplus of meaning. And it doesn't come from it like it's, some packet of the surplus of meaning. No, it's absolutely everything. So it's already absolutely everything. Where do we store it? Where do we keep it? Look around. It's everywhere. It's everything. And who is it? What is it? It's me. Okay. Now, I'm trying to show you what you can do. You can say, I am God. And you could be a fully functioning megalomaniac, but this is for the sake of metaphysics. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you, when I say things, it sounds weird when you hear someone say they're God, because you're listening to it and you actually deep down, you're God. You're the only being. You're the only thing. You are the supreme being. You are God. This is a kind of solipsism, and what it is it's only the highest solipsism. So it's the solus ipse of the highest sense of ipseity, but it's even beyond ipseity. It's beyond itselfness, because what it is God. But what that does is there's infinite power here. Take two sticks and you can make fire. Well, take these categories. They're not just categories. Again, this is not dry stuff. This is fucking real. And it's so intimate, so confidential. That's why I really like this stuff. There's all this confidential knowledge. It comes down to some really, really super intimate stuff. And that's because what God is, what the infinite is, absolute infinity, is not math. It's kind of like the core truth of math, but what it is, infinity is love. And it's not like, no, it's the giving of love. It's there in all of the different kinds of love. It's in everything. And it's in all ugly, hate, terribles, awful stuff too. Everything. And absolutely everything. And all the neutral, supposedly, dry stuff, ideas. No. Everything is love. Because everything is God. This is just like the most, greatest common factor, greatest common multiple, lowest common denominator. It's all of those things. And you might think like, wait a minute, aren't those acronyms like there because they're not each other? Well, yeah, no. When you're talking about numbers, right, no, those are different. When you're talking about bodies, yeah, there are different bodies, there are different people in that sense. And there's different forms that can happen, and they're always forms of God. So they're, in a way, all the personal incarnations of God. But amongst them, there are all sorts of strange hierarchies. And by strange, I mean like strange loop strange. So that like, you know, when right now I'm talking and I'm like, this highest point, this one's different than all these other possible, versions of Randy. Well, it might slip around and stuff, but it's a slippery subject. But in the end, it's not like Heidegger says it, and it's more like what Konrad Martius says. But even Konrad Martius was trying for this, to express this thing, and she accomplished so much. I mean, and so did Heidegger. I mean, so did all these thinkers, right? Everyone had something really incredible to contribute, and I would be nowhere without all of that, right? I mean, this what's happening right now, this would be nothing. It would, but it is what it is because of everything, because of Trump being a dumbass, because of Plato being misread, and because Plato was right, and because Plato was wrong, in all these different ways, because of everything working out exactly as it did. Boom, we get this ultimate eschatological telos of the timeline, of all the different timelines of this timeline. So that's a lot. And I mean, there's so many places to go. Like, I've barely even introduced myself. I'm Randy, and I'm Randy Dible. My plan all my life has been to write the Holy Dible because I want to express this stuff, and I did go into philosophy because, I want to express this stuff, because I want to investigate this stuff and to figure out, but also honestly, all along, I have not just been following a certain path. I have not just been following the academic path. Just because I'm a philosopher and I'm a professor and I do philosophy, it doesn't just mean, I am a philosopher. Again, I'm God, okay? And I'm also a human. I am a person who has experienced very specific things, and amongst them were breakthrough experiences of different kinds, and I've integrated these experiences in different ways. And in the end, boom, here I am. I've done a lot. I'm very happy with my lot right now, right here. I have a lot. And what I really want to do, though, all along, is I want to contribute this point. This is like what I'm calling my special contribution to Methesis Universalis, to Philosophia Perennis et Scientia Naturalis Perennis, whatever you want to call this stuff. Ultimately, I can do all this because I'm pulling it out of my imagination, out of my intelligence, and what I'm giving you, having sifted through everything, having connected with my breakthroughs, and each of these breakthroughs is just such an incredible experience that I had, but it's not about what it did then, it's about the parameters of the consciousness that I had at that time, because they're here right now, because those experiences of profundity, of bliss beyond bliss, of ecstasy beyond ecstasy, have metaphysical insight, immediate understanding, knowledge, wisdom, science in the deepest sense, knowing, and wisdom. So that's what I want to contribute. Philosophy has always been the love of wisdom. And that is the kind of cloak that this magic wears. This is the highest work, the great work, the magnum opus in the alchemical sense. So there's alchemy, there's so many things. Esoteric, occult traditions, there's Jung, there's the dynamics and the hermeneutics of Freud, there's the philosophy of like Paul Ricoeur reading Freud, like there's hermeneutics, there's so many things. And the ontological phenomenology of Hedwig Conrad Martius is a really important thing that's actually not by me. By me, I'm going to tell you right now about her universal ontology and the whole gist of her thought. But there are other people who are going to very soon learn about Conrad Martius and take already things that she's done and make them available. And we will see a whole new era of integral science, unlike we've ever seen before. Like what's called integral philosophy, but this is a higher integrity. So what we're witnessing now, this is the goal, this is the aim of this video, and of hopefully I can do more of these, what we're witnessing is the introduction of the paradigm of the sphere and the transformation of all spirituality into spherituality and enlightenment, which is enlightenment in relation to this infinitesimal point. So this point and the infinite sphere are fundamentally the same thing. But this is the first distinction of this universal ontology, this ontology of reality and ultimate reality. And I say the first distinction because that's where I'm coming from. This refers to Laws of Form by George Spencer Brown, a book published in 1969. But this was the book that Dr. John C. Lilly, who invented the flotation tank, was using as one of his most powerful devices in the float tank when he was inducing his bad trips on LSD and ketamine purposely in order to break through. Hey.
Oh, hi. We're closing, right?